Hello everyone, this is reading number 6, time value of money. We're going to do questions 1 till 5. Question 1. At a 7% required rate of return, how much is $500 to be received after 5 years worth today? Okay, so basically this $500 is the future value. We need to compute the present value at a 5-year period. The rate of return is 7%. Since they have not mentioned whether it's compounded quarterly or semi-annually or even monthly, we would have to assume that it is an annual compounding, which is great. So based on that, our correct answer is choice B. We have the period, which is 5 years. The interest rate is 7%. We do not adjust it simply because the compounding is annual. Future value, as we mentioned, is $500. There is no payment. We just compute the present value, which ends up being 356.49. Another way to do this without using your inputs in the financial calculator, you can simply divide $500 by 1 plus 7% to the power 5. Quite straightforward, not very hard. Let's do the other question. Question number 2. The real risk-free rate is best described as. Now, we know that the real risk-free rate does not include inflation. What type of inflation? Current or expected? Does not include expected inflation. If the real risk-free rate does not include expected inflation, then nominal risk-free rate does. So basically, the nominal risk-free rate minus the expected inflation would give us the real risk-free rate. So that's why it's choice C. Always remember that when you're calculating nominal risk-free rate, you have to include the expected inflation rate and not the current inflation rate. Let's do another problem. Question number 3. So Carl is expecting to receive $120,000 from his investment in the mining industry in 7 years. So this is the future value of his investment. Knowing that the rate of return is 11% per annum, and again, there is no mention over here whether it's compounded quarterly or semi-annually or even monthly. The question is to calculate present value, because what he should be willing to pay today refers to the present value. This question is very similar to the first one we did. It's basically 120 over 1 plus, what's our interest rate? 11%. To the power, how many years do we have? 7, especially that there is no compounding. We could also do this through the financial calculator by inputting the 4 givens and calculating for the 5th. The 4 givens are N being 7, interest rate being 11%, the future value 120,000, payment is 0, and we simply compute for the present value. The key is always determining what is required. What is required over here is the present value. And definitely you would have all the given in order to compute this required outcome. So question number 4. Sarah decided to rent in a vacation house for a full year after she reaches her 8th-year work anniversary, which happens to be after another 8 months. Now, obviously, this question is a multi-phase question. It has 2 steps. The first step, or the first phase, is the phase after rent, and the second phase is from today till that date. Okay, so if she is going to start renting the apartment when she completes her 8 years at work, that's after 8 months. And the question is, if the apartment rent costs $2,000 per month, how much should she have at the bank today, given that the interest rate is 7.5% per annum? Now, rent is $2,000 per month. However, it's paid at the beginning of the month. Since it's paid at the beginning of the month, at equal intervals, that's an annuity due. It's not an ordinary annuity, it's an annuity due. So in order to calculate what's required, which is PV today, because this is how much money Sarah needs today, we have to calculate first the PV of phase 2, which is the date that she starts renting the apartment or the house. Okay, so we need to calculate this PV. Knowing that rent is paid at the beginning of the month, costing $2,000 per month. Drawing the timeline is very essential. By now you have to know that phase 1 is calculating PV over here, and phase 2 is calculating the new PV, which is today, which is basically nothing other than the discounting effect of the first PV calculation we did. Now let's go into numbers. This was just a general overview of how we should think in calculating in dealing with multi-phase applications. Now let's do the math. So, as we mentioned, we need to calculate the PV of all the rents, of the PV of the annuity due. Since it's an annuity due, we know by now that we have to use the beginning mode. Okay, this is very important. The beginning mode with a 12-month period, so n is 12. Interest rate is 7.5% per annum. However, we have to divide it by 12. Payments or rent payments, which are 2,000. FV is 0. So we compute the PV of 23,197. This PV is the PV over here, okay, at the beginning of the second phase. What is required, however, is, let's throw this one on red, is the PV over here, okay, the PV today. So this is where we have to switch our calculators to end mode, and this PV over here would turn to a future value for the second phase, okay, which is an 8-month phase. So this is our the second phase present value is the first phase is over here future value. In this case, n is only 8 because we have 8 months for her to complete her 8 years at work in order to start renting the vacation house. The second input is interest rate, which is 7.5 divided by 12, does not change. No payments because we're just calculating the PV of one future cash flow, and the FV, as we mentioned, is the PV of the earlier stage. So our new present value is nothing other than 22,069. which is choice C. Now this isn't a very easy application, it's quite tough. Multi-phase or multi-step applications do show up in the exam, so you do have to be prepared. If you did not get it during the first time you're trying to attempt this question, please try it again. And always know that drawing the timeline is essential. Okay, drawing the timeline is the key step to understand how to go forward with the time value of money application. Question number 5. What is the effective annual rate if the stated rate is 10% compounded monthly? What's required over here? What's required is the effective annual rate. What is given? The given is a 10% stated rate, however it's compounded monthly. The formula is that the EAR 1 plus 10%, however the 10% is compounded monthly. So we divide by 12 and we directly put to the power 12 and we remove the effect of minus 1. So our correct answer is choice A, exactly how we did it up there. Okay, so 1 plus 10% divided by 12 to the power 12. Always keep your periods synced. Okay, so if it were to be quarterly compounding, we would divide by 4 and then put to the power 4. Thank you everyone, and I'll see you in a later batch of questions.